Hi there, this is Marcia Civic, your host for Be Provided Conservation Radio. And before we get going with today's episode, which was pre-recorded in the spring of 2019 with Dr. Laurie Marker, I wanted to share a fun event that's coming up that the Northern California chapter and the Monterey Bay chapter of the Cheetah Conservation Fund are putting together at the Rio Theater in Santa Cruz, California. The event is October 8th. You will get to meet Dr. Laurie Marker in person, and that's wonderful. She's great to meet in person. You can ask her all these questions that you are holding off after hearing today's show. And we will be screening also the Born to Explorers Namibia Land of the Cheetah. And that is by Richard Weiss. And we will also be honored to have Charlie Samet of the Monterey Zoo holding a Q&A session with Dr. Laurie Marker after the film screening. So the doors open at 6:30. Again, it's October 8th. Tickets can be found at cheetah.org under events for the fall tour. And just come and meet some great people. And just a little fun thing, the Monterey Zoo will be bringing some live animal ambassadors. So you may be able to meet a baby lemur or kangaroo. We will also have the Native Animal Rescue there from Santa Cruz, and they do the treatment and rehabilitation of sick and injured and orphaned wildlife in our area. So it's very important to get to know them. And also tabling, we will have Africa Matters, and you'll be able to meet representatives from this nonprofit organization, which actually helps conserve natural resources, habitat, and wildlife by promoting and supporting interaction between artists, educators, and scientists. And it's a great organization, so please come and meet everybody, meet some fun other animal lovers and people lovers, and enjoy today's show. And today our topic of the show is, so you want a pet cheetah? And the answer should be no to that question. But, I think when everybody sees a baby cheetah, their heart melts. They are cute. They have a cute little kind of roundish face, have dark golden eyes that are very curious and playful, and they have goofy, spiky mohawk hair that's meant to mimic a honey badger in the wild, and not to mention the hundreds of tiny little spots from the top of the head to the tip of their long tail. And their faces have that, wonderful distinctive black tear line, and when they look at you, you can see an intelligence, grace, and thoughtfulness. And when I asked my fellow feline lovers if they could have an exotic cat as a pet, what would it be? And the answer is almost always a pet cheetah. And it is even something that, I thought about, but note, I would never, ever think of having a cheetah as a pet in reality. And I would never, ever support anybody who does. And there is something magical and mystical about them, but these beautiful creatures belong in the wild. They do not belong on the passenger seat of a Ferrari or, in a collar and leash, sitting watching TV and wildlife videos in some high-rise apartment. Having a pet cheetah isn't new, but it's presently getting out of control. And in today's show, I spoke briefly with Dr. Laurie Marker during her 2019 spring fundraising tour for the Cheetah Conservation Fund about what is happening with cheetahs being traded as pets and how is this affecting their numbers in the wild. And as most of you know, I met Dr. Laurie Marker, the founding director of the Cheetah Conservation Fund, a few years ago. I was so inspired to learn about the work CCF is doing and what Dr. Marker has accomplished that I traveled to Namibia to become a working guest for a few weeks. It was a fantastic experience, and I highly recommend it to everyone. And I wrote a small piece about my experience at CCF for Wild Hope magazine, who we have also interviewed here with Catherine Arnold. And that will be published shortly, so stay tuned for that. I will be posting that. Also, if you are in the Bay Area, I want to remind you again, you can come and meet Dr. Laurie Marker in person at the Rio Theater in Santa Cruz on October 8th. And she will be there speaking about cheetah conservation in Namibia and how some of these methods can be applied to our area as well to protect our own cougar. And I am so excited to be speaking with Dr. Laurie Marker again, and I will keep you updated as things progress in this field. But today's show is about illegal pet trade, and as though I find it disturbing, I always enjoy hearing and speaking with Dr. Laurie Marker. I think she will inspire us to have hope and to come together and stop these actions and bring awareness to the world.
Welcome to Be Provided Conservation Radio, sharing stories and information about the environment, wildlife, and the people who are dedicating their lives to protect the world for future generations. These inspirational stories will take you from the Santa Cruz Mountains to remote areas of Africa.
So welcome to the show, Laurie. Thank you.
Hi, great. No, this is good to be able to, fill you in again on what's going on in the cheetah world. So
yeah.
Keeps us going fast all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, welcome back. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time. So, yeah. So what is happening? What updates do you have for us going?
Well, let me see. It's been obviously a few busy years since you were over as one of our volunteers. And maybe I'll just, give some background on, when you came over. We worked very hard. Not only at the Cheetah Conservation Fund, working with our cheetahs there, but with our livestock guarding dogs and our different programs, also our education program. And then you came back again, I think the first of 2018.
Right, for the conference.
And then attended our Pathways Conference, which you were a part of, helping us design that, develop that. And that was with the Colorado State University, as well as our partners in Namibia from the University or NUST, the University of Science and Technology, and the Namibian Nature Foundation, and so together in the Large Carnivore Management Association. So now then it's like a year and a half later,
right?
Which, it seems like that was very fast.
Yeah.
In the beginning of 2018, we also published a book on cheetahs called Cheetahs. Their biology and conservation, right? Yeah. And that's an Elsevier book, and it is a great book, and it tells you all about the cheetah. It's 40 chapters. We've got 160 co-authors within the chapters, and it takes you through the entire, gamut of the research that we've been involved in with cheetahs for myself now over 45 years. Right. And I think it brings everybody up to date on not only the how cheetahs are living, where they're living, the distributions, but the problems facing them and what the challenges are. And one of the chapters within the book also is about the illegal wildlife trade. Right. And the trade aspects have actually accelerated over the last year and a half. And so just to update you where we're at, cheetah cubs are actually oftentimes stolen from their mothers, or the mothers are killed, and the cubs are actually then taken. And this is primarily in the Somaliland, Ethiopia, and northern Kenya, where this is all sort of a not very stable part of the world as well. And so that trafficking of the cheetahs has become huge. And the cubs are actually on their way to the Middle East. And the cheetah cubs that end up in the Middle East become people's pets, and they're not really, not even really loved. For every one cheetah, it's kind of a prestigious thing, right? For them to it's
have.
Status symbol, and it's the rich who are very, very rich over in the Middle East buy the animals. I don't know if I'm sure they know it's all illegal, and from that, their lifespan, if they make it to the pet trade in the Middle East, probably 3 to 4 cheetah cubs die just in this transit. I mean, cheetah cubs are very, very vulnerable. They are caught as tiny cubs.
So they're caught before they're weaned sometimes, right?
Very much so. Usually because they start leaving their mothers den with her at about 6 weeks of age. And it seems like the traffickers have figured out how to get in there before that time and steal the cubs from the dens. So they are, ended up, still needing milk and oftentimes just so vulnerable. They're young and, they're stuffed in boxes and crates. The last batch that we got in last year in, I think, August and September, the cats couldn't even walk because they'd been stuck in these crates for such a long period of time.
That's so sad.
But if they do make it into the Middle East, they only have a lifespan of maybe 2 years because, again, the people there don't know how to take care of them. They don't have good diets. We end up with metabolic bone disease, viruses and diseases. They're not vaccinated. And so it's just a mess.
Yeah.
So this is like what we're involved in almost 24/7. Currently working with the Somaliland government, the Ministry of Environment and Rural Development, we have been able to actually confiscate now many cheetahs. We've got 23 cheetahs sitting at a safe house that we've developed in Somaliland, out of Hargeisa, where we are actively, caring for these cheetah cubs. And this has been over the last, year and a half, but in the last few months, we've actually ended up with another 8 or 9 cubs.
Oh my.
And, more than that as well, because some of them have not made it because of the poor health that they've come to us in. And from this, we've got full-time care there, caregiver named Neju, and then we're working with a group of veterinarians and veterinary students from actually Eastern Europe, from Vets Without Borders, from the Czech Republic and that of Romania. And these, wonderful volunteers are coming over and not only helping us take care of the animals, but also helping teach at the Hargeisa Veterinary School, where, again, this is one of the most rural areas in the world. And again, not being the safest region of the world, Somaliland is a breakaway country from Somalia. That means that they have been trying to get their own independence because they are a safe and democratic country for about 27 years. And so it's been great working with them. But circling back around to the Pathways Conference, we were actually able to bring a couple of the people from Somaliland for training down in Namibia at the Pathways Conference.
Wonderful.
Where they attended it and then learned a lot about not only good conservation in Namibia, which is where we're based, but went back and then really started putting a lot of pressure on the crime aspect. And that's when they started actually confiscating more cats. And they're the first time put people in jail for the poaching and the illegal trade of these animals.
Good. Yeah.
And so that's become a big thing, is how you actually strengthen that and catch the animals and then put people in jail. So they're just circling around to how important I think education and training is, and working with our partners throughout the Cheetah Range countries.
Yeah. So is it? So is there enough room to how do you take care of these 23 cats, cheetahs?
Yeah, well, they are small and cubs, but they are growing.
Yeah. So is there room to let them?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, we've had to bring in another facility. We are in the process of trying to develop a sanctuary about an hour and a half out of the main capital, Hargeisa. And that is a bit challenging because there's very few supplies, and getting even like chain link fence. Then we've got to develop water supply and electricity, because if you have big cats, you also need meat supply. So all of this becomes, very challenging in a country that has never had to deal with anything like this before. They don't have zoos. They don't deal with big cats. I mean, they primarily, their livelihood are livestock. So small stock, goats and sheep, camels. So even the veterinary school has no idea how to take care of an animal like a cat. I mean, and dogs are something that they don't deal with at all because that's kind of against their religion. Right. So all of this is kind of a learning process that we are fast assisting in. Mm-hmm. Again, I've been there a couple times and have tried to implement best practices in at least the animal care of the cubs, which has allowed us to save most of the cubs now that are coming in. And so we do have temporary facilities built for, and best as we can, for the animals that are there. But we are now looking at trying to really do more to get these facilities up and running out in the sanctuary so we can, put the cats as they grow into larger facilities.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But with this, it all takes money. And at this point, we are trying to support them it the best way we can with, $6,000 to $10,000 a month, just trying to help feed and care for those 23 animals. So, these are the kinds of things that I feel, people like animals, and they, always wonder, gee, what's going on? And, what does it take? And so it does take people who have care and have compassion, but it also, you have to link that together with money.
Money, yeah.
Which is like too bad. And I wish money, grew on trees, but I haven't yet found that money tree.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of my time trying to link together the partners. I've just been traveling for the last several months through Europe. I did a 7-country 3-week tour in Europe, talking about the issues with illegal trade to member states of CITES, the Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species, the CITES head office, the IUCN, as well as every EU and UN organization that we could meet with. And throughout Europe, there's huge numbers of EU organizations and UN, many of them working on illegal wildlife trade, but nobody has really heard that much about the cheetahs. Of course, everybody knows a lot about elephants and rhinos, but nobody's really even thought about these facts with cheetahs. And the area that these animals are being taken from, the population there is small. I mean, it's a critically vulnerable population of cheetahs. We think within this region of the Horn of Africa, we might only have like around 300 cheetahs there. And we're monitoring about 300 cheetah cubs a year being trafficked out of that. And so you can see that doesn't really work.
So you monitor 300 and you're only capturing or rescuing so many. Oh my gosh.
Well, and so we know that and they're being sold basically up in illegally into Saudi Arabia and the UAE. The UAE has good strict laws that they've put together over the last few years. And with that, though, we're not seeing confiscations going on up there like we were seeing a few years ago. And so we do know that the smuggling is still going on into that area. It might be just a little bit quieter. And we do know what's going on into Saudi Arabia. And what we're actually trying to do is to find influencers. And so, stopping the demand, I think, can be done, but it has to actually come from people who are from a similar status. People who are very, very rich, kings, emperors, princes, sheikhs, who many of them are so rich, and they don't maybe have a Western world perspective of the importance of wildlife. They have come from a different perspective, coming from probably very poor roots, and over the last maybe 2 generations have found huge wealth. To such an extent that they can buy, the world and 2 worlds. But what they're not doing, unlike our organization, the Cheetah Conservation Fund, is doing everything that we can to try to save the animals and keep them living in the wild.
Right.
And so we are trying to actually help people realize, and it's kind of an oxymoron, I guess. It's like save them in the wild. Why? I can buy an animal, and it's going to be even more valuable if it's the last living animal on Earth.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, just the mindset is so different than the mindset of probably most of your listeners in understanding this. And you can't combat it by throwing rocks and saying bad things. We actually have to have people who have, again, the same status to really say, this has to stop, and we need to actually go to a different level. and try to use our wealth in maybe helping save these animals in the wild.
Right. Kind of make it look like it's a bad thing for other people to do. Have you been able to reach out to at least one person like that to talk to? You're trying still, yeah.
We have also brought in the Princess Alia of Jordan, who is one of the older princesses there, who has the Princess Alia Foundation, which revolves around trying to stop illegal wildlife trade.
Amazing.
And she is a great spokesman in wildlife issues and welfare issues. And so we met with her actually in January and invited her to become one of our royal ambassadors,
Great.
Of which she said yes. And with that, Jordan is also within that region, I think, very stable and has a good way of talking with many of the different country partners in that area. So again, that's the kind of diplomacy that we're trying to go towards to try to actually make a difference. At the same time, again, in the Horn of Africa, to try to really see how we can strengthen the legal aspect of it, and the people on the ground, the customs officers and the border guards who, many of them have, what's a cheetah? We don't really understand what that might be.
So that's how some of these are getting by, or just, wow.
And not knowing what to look for and things like this. I mean, again, this area is so poor. And also it's been an area that's been under such unrest. And terrorism is something that is, being fed into this as well, being, profited by the sales of these animals. And so, today the world is such a funny place that, poor little cheetah cubs in the middle of all this stuff, and how we find ourselves weaving this web of trying to, again, change the world in order to save the cheetah.
Right.
No small
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, let's get it done. Yeah. So it seems like in this case, you mentioned money is a great way to help. And I think this is a place where money will go a long ways to really help, and where donations like that are really powerful.
Very much so.
Yeah, because I think you and I have talked privately too. It is hard to get volunteers there, I would think, because of the situation of the country, and get, workers there. And it's probably hard for,
Well,
I would assume so anyways. Yeah.
Somaliland has just opened up even its visa process.
Oh, they did?
Somaliland is trying to really open itself up.
Great.
And is, again, it is safe, and so that is an important part. Of course, understanding the customs of the country is important, but we do and are inviting certain volunteers to assist. Again, we have the vets and vet students coming in to help us.
That's great.
And we do need animal care takers, people who know how to take care of animals, feed, cut up meat, clean cages, pick up poop. And on the other side, with the development of this sanctuary, anybody who maybe has some, skills in building things is also
right. Maintenance and facility. Yeah.
And so those are things. I mean, unlike Namibia, we do welcome volunteers regularly down and help us. And
right. I was the working guest there. That was great. Yeah.
And, I can talk a little bit maybe about what's going on in Namibia right now, too, or
That'd be
with the
great.
Cheetah Conservation Fund. I think, Namibia is a very special country, and we know that we are a leader in conservation of wildlife throughout all of Africa, and I'd actually put that even forward, saying that we are one of the leaders in conservation of wildlife in all of the world. And so welcome people to learn more about our conservancy initiatives, the great work that our government has done to actually really empower people to be a part of conservation. It is a part of our Constitution. The protection of our environment is a part of every aspect of the work that the country does, because our environment, being very arid, is also very susceptible to the issues around climate change right now.
Right.
And so the wildlife becomes a very important part of our economic importance as well in trying to actually reduce the impacts of livestock in our very arid landscape. And where the cheetahs are found, they're found in arid landscapes throughout all of their range. They're found in 23 countries, 31 populations, and every area that they live in all looks really much the same. Rocky sand and gravel, overgrazed lands with thorn bushes, and so just knowing how to actually manage our wildlife in Namibia, we've tried to help develop programs throughout the other areas where cheetahs are found.
Right.
One of the programs that's been very successful to us has been our livestock guarding.
Yeah, and this is the year of the dog, by the way.
It is for the Cheetah Conservation
Yes.
Fund. We are celebrating 25 years of the work that we've done with our livestock guarding dog program.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 25-year period, we've actually bred and placed about 650 dogs throughout not just Namibia, but we've helped develop programs in South Africa. We've helped develop programs in Botswana, in Tanzania, and also even here in the United States.
Yep, I've seen it come around here. Yep.
It's just amazing. Yep. And in Europe, where, again, for the long time programs, and I think few people understand the importance and value of a long time program.
Right.
We've been based in Namibia as Cheetah Conservation Fund for almost 30 years, 29 years and counting. And from that, we are the amount of work that goes into, nearly 30 years, but it is a long-term process of, data collection, being on the ground, education, our education programs, the importance of our livestock guarding dogs, working with the communities. And, with that, we've got also long-term data that shows how important, like the use of the livestock guarding dog is.
You're right.
And I think I say this to people everywhere, is that we talk about human-wildlife conflict and conflict with predators, and most of this conflict really revolves around the fact that farmers or ranchers play a role in their livestock losses.
Big time, yeah.
And ranchers don't like to necessarily hear that. And we can't necessarily blast them, but we can keep asking the question on what role they do play in their livestock losses. And if we can help them find solutions so that the predators are not all killed, and it's not always the predator's problem. And so the livestock guarding dogs have been a big support for this. The dogs that we use are a Turkish breed. They're an Anatolian Shepherd or a Kangal dog, and they are found in from Turkey. They've been used in Turkey for about 5,000 years.
Wow, that long. Yeah.
And then we've been bringing the dogs, we brought that breed of dog in, and we use this breed of dog because in Turkey they are used in vast areas. So they're a breed of dog that doesn't necessarily need humans to guide it. They are an independent thinking dog. They're also coming from areas where at the high plateau of Anatolia, they do have very fluctuating temperatures from very, cold winters into very, very hot summers. And where Namibia is, we're in a high desert. So we also have, a cold winter, cold nights, as well as very hot days. And so the dogs adapt to that. But being independent thinkers, they take care of the livestock. They grow up with them. And then they,
I love that. Yeah.
They're wonderful. Yeah. And then they bark really loudly, and they basically tell intruders, the other predators, where they are and where their herd is. And
they're
again,
also very big. Yeah, they
the
can
dogs
be big.
They're very big.
Yeah.
They're about the size of a goat. I mean, and weigh more, I think.
They're pretty sturdy. Yeah.
Then they blend in, and so they kind of pop up, and you don't even know they're there. But the other predators, when they know that the dogs are there, because they hear them bark, the dogs mark territory, so the predators smell that there's something there. And so if they do pop up, they are big, and they basically can address most any predator, which is great. They can protect against not just cheetahs, but even leopards, and of course jackals are a problem, caracal, baboons are a big problem, and the dogs will protect against all of those. And we see between 70 to 100% decrease in livestock loss when farmers have the dogs.
That's
and
great.
That's not just to the cheetah, but it's livestock loss to any predators.
Right, right.
But then overlapping that too is the fact that we do a Future Farmer of Africa training programs where we found that the farmers don't have a lot of knowledge in livestock management. And with that, they don't have knowledge on rangeland management and grassland management, because overgrazing of your livestock really causes a huge problem.
Right.
Again, in Namibia, it becomes a issue around desiccation, where the bush actually comes in and takes over the thorn bushes.
Yeah, and those are vicious.
They're horrible, and they've got deep roots, and they're drinking all of our underground water. So it becomes a cyclical problem. And so our training programs deal with livestock management. How do you care for your animal? Trim hooves. How do you vaccinate? How do you deal with parasites? What are they? And then working with the farmers on understanding healthier animals, less of them.
Yeah.
Affects the grazing land, how to manage your grazing land. And then also Namibia is well known for an integrated system where wildlife is living on the same land as our livestock. And so with that, we always bring in the importance of wildlife, and you need to then have less impact on the land with livestock. And then wildlife can be, again, a secondary economic component to people's livelihoods through that of ecotourism, which, again, I know you've traveled around Namibia and East Africa.
Yeah.
And I think you visit Africa not just to see livestock.
Right.
I bet you're there to see all the wildlife.
And you.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so the wildlife is so important. When you end up having a value of your wildlife, like Namibia does, and it's translated over to our communities, because we have community-based conservation areas. They're called conservancies. And about 40% of Namibia is in conservation land. And of that, half of that is in the direct hands of the people, the communities, who are benefiting by having wildlife on their land through aspects of ecotourism and sustainable utilization. And along those lines, we end up seeing that we don't have the poaching issues that other countries have, because the wildlife is a part of the people. And when again, the people we're working with are very, very poor. So it's not like, people living here in the United States who, we have poverty, but it's at a different level. And, we shouldn't have poverty here either.
Yeah, it's a deep-rooted kind of poverty. They're out living with wildlife, in the middle of nowhere.
But so with it, then you end up having... when the people are actually engaged and a part of conservation, they're going to be the ones, the best people to monitor that of anti-poaching. And so our community-based conservancies and the rangers on the ground are the ones actually, helping protect our wildlife in Namibia. And that's why Namibia just keeps coming out as a star in conservation, I think, in the world.
Yeah.
I'm really proud to have been there from its beginning. Namibia got its independence 29 years ago, and
that's right, when you were there, right?
Cheetah Conservation set up 29 years ago. However, I'd been working in and out of Namibia since the 70s. I felt that setting up programs in Namibia were going to be the best place where we might be able to save the cheetah for future generations, but then work with other country partners, which is what we've done. We brought people in from throughout all of Africa, cheetah range countries, and put them through extensive training in a variety of levels. Our conservation biology programs, where now many of these people are in government levels within their countries, where then we can work closer with them and also look at training programs in those countries as well, like Ethiopia or like Somaliland or Algeria. We've even worked, as you know, up in Iran, and then throughout the other countries like Kenya, where we actually have a very active program in Kenya as well, in partnership with Action for Cheetahs with Kenya.
Yeah.
And there we also have volunteers that come and help up in that area, where Mary Wickstra and her team are working actively on monitoring the cheetah population throughout Kenya. And we do see a lot of kind of decline of the population in much of the area because so much of the wildlife is outside of the protected area, and the people have taken over a lot of the lands, broken down a lot of the large, big private ranches, I guess.
Yeah, there's not a lot of corridors available either for them. Yeah.
And you end up with a lot of conflict and poaching going on up in those areas. So those are, just working in these different areas is just all different. Different problems, different programs, different needs.
When I was at CCF as a working guest, it was really good to see how all this come together. Like you said, there are a lot of different things, but you're really proactive of working with the communities. I think that's key. I saw a lot of good, positive response from the community people who visited while I was there. And I think that's good. I think people are willing to learn if they have the opportunity, right?
Very much.
Yeah, and it seems like it's doing really good.
Well, one of the big programs we've got going on also in Namibia right now has been out in the eastern communal areas, which is called the Greater Waterberg Landscape.
Yeah.
And we've started now a One Health program out there. This is also where African painted dogs are found, and they've been also persecuted and killed in very high numbers. And our program there deals with not only the training of future farmers of Africa and education, but we've now got a mobile vet clinic en route over there.
Oh, great.
We started a vaccine program where we're actually vaccinating dogs for rabies at this point, and we're hoping later in the year to start a spay and neuter clinic as well. So that is ongoing. It's very, very big. And again, we've got lots of volunteers assisting us along that, as well as a lot of interns from universities throughout the world, as well as interns from Namibia working hand in hand to develop that program too.
That's great. So volunteers are a big, important base for you. As a working guest, it was easy for me to actually get over there, and I just wanted to state that so people know. I mean, it was it was good. You guys were very helpful in getting me over there and volunteering. It was safe. How do people can you explain how people can become volunteers and get more involved like that?
Sure.
Yeah. And what you look for? Or...
Well, we look for people who want to work hard.
Yeah.
Have passion, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think going to our website is probably the best thing, which is cheetah.org.
Okay.
And that tells about all of our different programs, but also about how you can get involved. I mean, we've got a lot of volunteer here in the United States,
right.
well as also around the world. So Cheetah Conservation Fund is a nonprofit organization, not only in the United States, but in Canada, in the UK, in Italy. We're developing in France, Belgium, we've got CCF.
Great.
Australia, Namibia, partners in Germany. So we are kind of a bit of everywhere.
That's
and
great.
Our volunteer groups here outside of Africa also are extremely helpful in trying to help develop programs, help us in fundraising, awareness, spreading the word, going to schools. You're a part of our Northern California chapter and have been very active in, spreading the word here and putting on,
paint a cheetah, the art of the cheetah. Yeah.
Yeah. The
art of the saving cheetahs.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. People learned a lot that day too, Yeah.
And we're trying to get people to help in other, states and other countries to, get involved in something. And I think people don't know what to do. And so I think volunteerism is a really important thing. The United States is very active, I think, in volunteering and also assisting in nonprofits. It is probably one of the countries in the world, Americans are, who are outstanding at really getting involved in that. And I think global leaders in much of that. But we do, welcome people to learn about what we do, and helping us in Namibia is anything from, animal care to obviously a lot of our ecology work, sorting camera trap photos and helping do game counts and doing education programs with school groups. So there's a lot that goes on. But people can also just visit Namibia as a tourist as well.
Yeah.
And other parts of Africa. But most people here in America don't know about Namibia, which I find interesting.
It is. It's a beautiful place. And it is. People always ask me, is it safe? And it's very safe.
Yeah. And
it's very easy to travel.
Yeah, it's very easy to get down.
I mean, it's a long flight there, but once you're there, it's great.
Right. It's democratic.
Yeah.
It's English speaking. That's the other thing too.
Yeah.
So we welcome people to come and go on a safari.
Yeah.
Etosha is one of the largest game reserves in the world. Another lovely reserve that we've been doing a lot of our rewilding in is called the Orindi Ranch, where just recently we put another 7 cheetahs in rewilding out there, and they're doing great.
That's terrific. Good.
Yeah, they're doing very well. Hunting now regularly. And we will soon, we think, be working on rewilding of some of the African painted dogs that we've been also by the government asked to take care of. So just, never a dull moment where we are in Namibia, and for me, traveling around the world and trying to get more people involved and, again, raising the funds that it takes to do conservation and save a species.
Yeah.
And we welcome people to get involved with us in saving the cheetah. And when you save a top predator, lots of other species are saved within these large ranges. So taking a landscape approach, conservation of our large carnivores is very, very important.
Oh, it makes sense. Yeah, and I think it helps the people too. I think you're enriching the lives of people in those communities in Namibia as well. So
very much so.
And everywhere,
Yeah.
I mean, once you realize you love a cheetah, your life is enriched anyways, once you learn about them and find out how cool they are. But
don't have them as a pet.
Don't have them as a pet.
And try to help us stop the illegal wildlife trade.
Thank you for listening to Be Provided Conservation Radio. Links and resources to today's topic are in our show notes on iTunes. We appreciate your dedication and interest in protecting our natural world for future generations. If you like what you heard, please get involved by volunteering, donating, and sharing these podcasts with your friends. It also helps us to inform more people if you take a minute to leave a rating or review on iTunes. Have a great day, and thank you for listening to Be Provided Conservation Radio.